So it's nice to see you this morning, Claire.
Yeah, beautiful sunny day, a little warm.
I know, it's so nice.
Can't complain about the sunshine.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, typical kind of Brits, isn't it? Talking about the fact that it's too sunny, having had a spring that was grey and wet.
Yeah, June took a while to warm up. Now it really has. Yeah, all good.
I think we'll wait a few minutes to see who joins, and then we'll get started, if that sounds okay.
That sounds perfect. Thank you.
I kind of can't. So I think let's get going, and then I think what happens is that people kind of join as we're going through. So I think welcome everyone to our LinkedIn Live. We're here to talk about flexible working and part-time working and the huge talent pool that can be accessed by roles being more flexible, and how can we work together to unlock this. So quick intro to me. My name's Jen D'Souza. I work for Charity People. Charity People is a recruitment agency specialising in supporting the charity sector. I used to work in the charity sector for about 8 years, and then I worked for Greater London Authority, managing programmes that worked with the third sector, and I'm also a mom to 3 daughters. Claire, it's a real pleasure to be with you this morning. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. So, I'm Chief Exec of an organisation called Timewise. We're a mission-led social enterprise, and we are all about helping unlock more roles to flexible working and kind of working with organisations to try out new ways of working that support people who want to work less or work flexibly. I've been with Timewise since 2016. And have helped grow our consultancy work with employers. So I've worked with a whole variety of public and private sector employers over my time with Timewise, and it's always a joy to go to different workplaces and hear the experiences that people have. My early career was in civil service HR roles, always with a talent and resourcing focus, and in consultancy, but again with quite a focus on talent and resourcing. And yes, I'm also a mum of 2 boys.
Lovely. Thanks so much, Claire. So we thought that it would be important, at the start, really just to talk about why we're here. So flexible working is a way of working that suits an employee's needs, and it can be anything from compressed hours to working part-time, working in a job share, having flexible start and finish times, working part of the week from the office and the rest of it from home, or working fully remotely, or working term time hours. And it's often a lifeline for people who want to balance work with their home life, and also for people who just need a more flexible approach to work. And flexibility around time, around work schedule and place of work can be really transformative. There's a huge talent pool of underrepresented groups in the job market, including women, Black, Asian and other minoritized groups, disabled people, and also carers and parents. And it is quite a hot topic. So the government announced a new flexible working bill, which had been kind of in the pipeline for, lots of people working for many years in the background there. And it came into effect on the 6th of April. This year, and it means that employees can make a request for flexible working from their first day in a job. Kind of tell me a bit about your working pattern, Claire. Do you work part-time or flexibly?
Yeah, I've done a variety over the years. Even pre-kids, I could always work from home every now and then. I did a compressed fortnight for a while, working 9 days instead of 10. To allow me to do some charity work and trustee work that I wanted to do. Since kids, I wanted to go back part-time. And I was lucky at the time I had a boss who wanted to have a bit of a role model. We didn't have many senior part-time women in HR, and given how many women do work in HR, he was keen to have a role model, so supported me to work 3 days a week. which I did while my kids were little. They're a bit bigger now, so I back up to 4 days a week. But yeah, I don't think I could give up my Fridays off. I really couldn't. It makes such a difference to my life. Makes such a difference to my life, having that extra day to kind of do house and life and parenting admin, so that the weekends I can spend quality time doing things I enjoy and with the kids.
Definitely. So I also work part-time and work flexibly. So our first daughter was born, or she's now 7.5. So when I went back after she was born, I worked in a job share. Actually, both my job share and I did 3 days a week. So it's that kind of sweet spot, I suppose, for job sharing, where we had that 1 day of crossover. And then I worked in another job share, and now I work 4 days a week, and Monday is my non-working day. I haven't worked on a Monday for about 7 years, apart from a couple of months ago when I attended an event which was about flexible working and job shares, and that happened to fall on a Monday. But I work part-time because I've got 3 children, and because the cost of childcare is at unprecedented levels. I want to continue working, but also, as a family, I need to work. But I also want to be around for my children during the week. And I think a lot of kind of working parents or people who are carers, that balance between work and family life is really delicate. So we're going to spend a bit of time kind of hearing about the work that Timewise are doing. We'll talk a bit about charity people and recruitment, and what hiring managers and kind of leaders within the sector should be taking into consideration when thinking about hiring. There will be an opportunity to ask questions, so do pop them into the chat. Claire and I are going to be looking at that as we go along, and we'll come to answer some of those questions at the end. And any that we're unable to answer, we'll just answer kind of in the comments on LinkedIn after the event. So it'd be really great to hear, Claire, just I suppose a little bit more about Timewise and the work that you've been doing around flexible working.
Yeah, thank you. So Timewise, our mission, as I said earlier, is to work to create kind of healthier, more inclusive workplaces. So most of our work is working with employers, and at the moment a lot with employers who maybe struggle with flexible working because their roles are site-based, or they need people there all the 5 days a week in a certain place, or maybe in a rostered role. So we look at how you can do flexibility when not just hybrid. If people can't work from home, how can you look at flex options that work in those other kind of roles? So that's been a big part of our work. We also work with organisations on their approach to hybrid strategies. We've done a couple of more recent projects around 4-day week and people wanting to trial kind of reduced hours working. And in the past, we've done stuff around tackling long hours cultures in kind of sectors like legal and finance, where there can be issues around very long working days and working hours. So variety of types of project that we do, but all designed to unlock more flexible working, unlock more part-time working in those employers.
So interesting. And did you did some research recently, and what was the outcome of that research?
Yeah, last year we looked specifically at part-time working. It's been a key part of Timewise's mission since the start to make sure that people who are working part-time have good opportunities and can still progress, and shouldn't kind of face any barriers just because they want to work less. So we did an in-depth piece of research last year called Question of Time, where we looked at the experience of part-time working in the UK. And we asked all sorts of workers, part-time and full-time workers, kind of what they thought about part-time work. It was really clear there's a high demand. Over 40% of people responded that they would like to work part-time, or that's something they would want to do in the future. So we know it's a popular choice for people that they think they will need, especially with what longer working lives that we all have. Not everyone wants to work flat out full-time till they're 70. So there could be periods of life, where caring responsibilities or just health or general well-being, there's a variety of reasons why people might want to work part-time. So the research was really interesting to highlight that demand. I think it highlighted there are still some perception barriers, some doubts from certain groups whether you could progress your career if you were working part-time, and whether part-time people were seen as ambitious as full-time people. So I think there are still, some areas we need to address around kind of attitudes towards part-time working, but it's certainly popular as an option for people.
And that's so interesting to have that baseline research, because, you know, obviously one of the purposes of this conversation today is to challenge that stereotype and just really, you know, increase awareness around the demand around part-time working and flexible working. And also, you mentioned to me that you've got a podcast that's on the horizon, or I think, is it just been launched? It'd be great to hear a little bit more about that and what we can expect.
Yeah, out this month, a podcast called Part-Time Works. So I think we've just released the 3rd episode this week. And what we've done, because we want to normalise part-time working and make sure it's kind of featuring in people's thoughts about how they might want to work. Each episode features 2 part-time workers and their stories and their practical tips on how they make it work and how you can continue to progress your career. We've got job shares in there. We've got like a nurse and a police officer in the episode we published this week, so showing that it can be done in like all different types of roles.
So interesting.
So the stories, I hope are really interesting, and they're accompanied by some tools as well, so like how to find a part-time job, how to progress, how to look for job shares, and so on. So there's some really nice practical tools that we've shared as well alongside the podcast. So it's called Part-Time Works, and
amazing.
And your colleague will share the details in the chat.
We've just I can see that we've just shared the link to it, so that's great. I will definitely be listening to that. So no, that's really great to hear, Claire, that there's so much that you're doing, so much, you know, kind of across different sectors, you know, not just the charity sector. So I work for charity people. Anyone that follows me on LinkedIn will know that I, you know, bang on about flexible working and part-time working quite a lot. So I've been at Charity People for about 2 years, and we're a recruitment agency working with the charity and not-for-profit sector. And we've been around for about 30 years. So we started from grants from the Prince's Youth Business Trust and the London Enterprise Agency, with the aim to promote the charity sector as a great place to work, to attract talented and committed candidates and to help charities recruit effectively. And a lot has changed in 30 years. But what I would say is that, you know, the values, the aims and the principles of what we do remain the same. But our focus now is much more around inclusive recruitment. So how can we best support the sector to recruit, yes, effectively and efficiently, but also inclusively? I speak to dozens of hiring managers and people looking for jobs every week. I mean, I say dozens, it's probably hundreds. But I have conversations with candidates every day who need flexibility. We also speak to hiring managers who need to fill vital roles within their team. And there is a huge demand for flexible and part-time roles. And when we, you know, very much like what you were saying, Claire, in terms of your research, but when we advertise for a role that offers part-time hours, the response is absolutely huge. So we really cannot underestimate the importance of hiring managers considering part-time workers as a way to access huge amounts of unlocked talent. So really thinking, you know, when a role is being developed, if it's a new role or you're looking to recruit somebody who's left, you know, does the role need to be full-time, and are you open to different flexible models? Kind of touching on what you were saying earlier, Claire, you know, part-time workers aren't part committed, part qualified, part competent or part ambitious. The context here is so important. So, you know, for parents in particular, we've got the huge cost of childcare. We've got one of the most expensive childcare systems in the world, and the cost of commuting, and also living in a city. We've also got mental health and well-being. There's so many other reasons. But it does mean that more flexibility, you know, will allow more people to stay in work, which supports progression opportunities, retains talent, contributes positively to the economy, and tackles the huge issue of the gender pay gap. And, you know, the why is really important. You know, people need to be able to progress their career whilst working part-time. And I think, you know, one of the things that's definitely worth talking about in a little bit more detail, and really kind of thinking what can we do as a sector to address this, is that the sector needs more senior part-time posts at exec and board level. And one way to do this is through job shares. So actually, you know, it can still be a full-time post, but you've just got a different flexible way of doing it. But we need more employers to see part-time work as a viable option for senior positions, and it needs to be more mainstream. You know, again, tying into what you were saying, Claire, that we need to challenge some of the stereotypes. So part-time work isn't only associated with mothers. I can see one of the comments already. Hi, Rob. It's nice to see you here. You know, it's not just women that want to work part-time to be around for their families, you know, whether that is children or caring for elderly relatives. It isn't a women kind of issue. But you know, unless this happens, and unless there are more senior positions that are part-time, there will be little opportunity for part-time workers to progress. It sends a really powerful message, and it would have, you know, really a hugely positive impact on those with caring responsibilities. So those who are wanting to juggle work with caring or studying, you know, as I said earlier, kind of well-being, health, life choices. There's lots and lots of different reasons. And I'd be really interested, Claire, to hear your thoughts on what do you think employers can do to respond to the demand?
Yeah, I think, as you said, you know, we know when jobs are advertised with part-time or flexible, you get more applicants. There was a study, actually, Behavioural Insights team joined up with Indeed and checked that and counted, and jobs that mentioned flexible or part-time got 30% more applicants. So, wow, you know, straight away, there's a benefit to employers. And I think many employers actually will support types of flexibility, but just don't think of mentioning it in an advert. So my first tip would be just capture the flexibility you can offer and proactively offer it. Still only 3 in 10 job ads reference any type of flexibility available. And we know there's a lot more jobs than that will offer flexibility. So, you know, be open about what you can offer. I think then it's understanding, as we said, there's a whole range of options and ways to offer jobs more flexibly. Part-time is just one, but yeah, job share is a great way of having a full-time role shared. You can look at splitting roles. You can look at people perhaps working at different times of day. It doesn't have to be 9 to 5. So there's a whole variety of ways to work flexibly. So I think helping train managers to understand those options and feel confident to negotiate, because I think, you know, I do sympathise with managers that sometimes someone suggests something that just isn't going to work, and so you have to be able to kind of negotiate and find what will work with the role and what kind of, the ideal is obviously something that supports the individual but also supports the role and the team and the organization that they're working with. So I think be prepared to negotiate. And the other tip for employers, I think, is trial. You can use trials. So, you know, if you're not sure that working pattern that they've suggested is going to work, let's just try it for 3 months, see how it goes, and you can review it and, you know, just keep it kind of a live conversation so that you can, you know, tweak. And I think, you know, you expect a bit of flexibility from individuals to make it sure that it works.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That's really interesting. And one of the other things I know that we've spoken about previously is, you know, obviously the flexible working bill now means that people can request flexible working on day one, you know, when they start the job. But what, you know, kind of what would your advice be about when to mention flexible working?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're investigating an employer, it's worth doing a bit of just sounding out, have a look what the job site says around kind of ways of working, flexible working. Maybe ask some questions at the very early stages just to suss out the culture and the kind of approach to flexible working. But then, you know, then if I think, you know, you want to make them fall in love with you and you to be the candidate that they want to recruit. So it's often safer, dare I say, even in this day and age, to kind of wait until, you know, you've had a couple of interviews, they're really keen, to then be open and discuss But yeah, I wouldn't wait till day one. I think at that offer stage where, you know, they want you and you've got a little bit of negotiating power is the time to have a conversation, but listen to what they think they can offer and what's going to work from them, rather than going in with, I can only work Monday to Wednesday. You know, you don't want that sort of level of inflexibility. You want to go in kind of listening to what they think will work, and try and find something, as we said, that will work for both sides.
Absolutely, and that's really helpful. And I think from our perspective at Charity People, in terms of working, you know, as a recruitment agency, when we're speaking to hiring managers and we're taking the brief about a job, we're always asking, you know, tell us a bit more about, you know, the headline details of the role. So is it full time? Can it be done part time? Is it hybrid? You know, what are the flexible working options? And then we make it really clear then at the point of advertising and at the point of sending across a job pack to somebody and having all of those conversations. So, you know, my advice would be, you know, if you're going live with a role, to really have a think about that before you go live, so that you know, that's just fair, I think, on people applying, because obviously people aren't going to apply if it's a full-time role and there's no flexibility, because it's just a waste of everybody's time. But being really open and transparent about that at the beginning of the process is absolutely what we would advise. You know, what is possible. And I think what you said about offering it as a you know, the if it's something that's slightly different to what's happened before, then offering that as a trial. But obviously, if someone is, you know, leaving a job to start another permanent position and they've currently been working, you know, 3 days a week, and they don't work, say, Mondays and Fridays for childcare reasons, it's going to be really hard. You know, I had a conversation internally at work about the possibility of doing a different non-working day. And I mean, you know, I just can't change the day that our daughter doesn't go to nursery. You know, it's not that there's quite a lot that goes behind the thinking, I suppose, of somebody's flexible working request or their need. So I think kind of what we've covered so far, I'd say, you know, obviously this, in terms of, you know, part-time working and flexible working, has the potential to have such a huge impact. There's hundreds of thousands, you know, of probably more, of talented, experienced and skilled individuals who want to work, but they just can't work full-time. But, you know, they're competent and they're driven and they're motivated. So it's really about kind of getting that balance right, and for hiring managers to make, you know, progressive decisions and choices, and all of those choices will lead to a more diverse and inclusive workforce. I suppose just before we come to questions, if anybody's got any questions, do kind of pop them into the chat now, because we're getting to the time where we'll be able to answer any questions that you've got. But have you got any advice, Claire, around, you know, top tips for people who want to progress their career if they do work part-time?
Yeah, I think there's been some great ones in the podcast I've been listening to. So yeah, there's an episode coming up on progression and people who've taken big steps in their career, but all while working part-time. So some of the ones that stuck with me from that, I think, and resonated with me from my own experiences of having worked part-time now for about 12 years. Firstly, ruthless prioritization. So really understanding what's important in a job, because if something's going to have to give because you're only working, you know, 70% of the time or something, work out what really matters, and put your energy and time there, and you know, kind of understand what's really important. I think it's about remaining visible, because there's a risk, obviously, if you're not sort of seen as much as other people, that could have a knock on to you getting opportunities. So I think, you know, putting yourself forward for opportunities, trying to find some internal sponsorship, so the people who are going to kind of back you and give you those opportunities and push you a bit, I think, you know, becomes even more important. And the third one I really liked was around kind of not worrying too much, like, oh, is this going to affect my career in the long term? You know, what's going to happen in 5 years' time? Don't worry about it. You know, just do what's right for you now and do the best job you can in the job you're in now and the opportunities you've got now, and take it, you know, 1 year at a time. Because, you know, nobody's career these days is particularly linear. I think we all have squiggly careers. So yeah, just kind of do the best job you can in the opportunities you've got now, and don't kind of worry about the long term, which I thought was a great tip.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really good advice. And I think the only other one that I would add, you know, from, as you said, you know, you've worked kind of part-time for 12 years. I've worked part-time for kind of 7 years. Don't be apologetic about the fact that you work part-time. You know, there's quite a lot of language around, oh, I just work part-time. And that, you know, I think that's quite dangerous. That's what we really need to avoid in terms of this kind of stereotyping. And, you know, on a personal level, you know, I work part-time. You know, when my older two children were younger, I had 2 days in the week where I wasn't working when I was in the job share, and now I have a day with our youngest, and I will never look back and regret those days that I had with them when I wasn't working. And it's hard, you know, progressing your career and working part-time. You know, everything. I love the ruthless prioritization. That's the kind of that'll stick with me. You know, it isn't easy, but I do think that it's really important. You know, if you want to work part-time, then, you know, that is your position. And, you know, have open conversations with hiring managers at the beginning. You know, my working pattern is a 4-day week. Is this going to work in this role? And just take the conversation from there. We did want to do a shout out to a couple of organisations. So Leaders Plus is a social enterprise. They run a training and fellowship for leaders who want to progress their career whilst raising young children. Also Career Returners, which used to be Women Returners, and it's podcasts and events from people returning from a career break. You mentioned Squiggly Careers. So yes, Squiggly Careers and Amazing If are an organisation that really promote the fact that it's okay to have time out to work part-time, and careers don't always have to go up, that, you know, they can be squiggly. And also Flexible Working People is a jobs platform for flexible part-time roles. Of course, Timewise, you know, your research and your consultancy and your podcast, and Charity People as an organisation that's really focused on inclusive recruitment, and we advertise quite a lot of part-time roles. So it doesn't look as if there's loads in the kind of questions in the chat. Maybe that just means that we've hopefully kind of answered everything that everyone was hoping to have answers to when they joined. But, you know, really interesting to hear, you know, Rob saying that he works flexibly, which is great for childcare and also for school runs. And also great to see that, you know, that Rob was saying that his wife works in a job share for an international education institution, and, you know, they recruited 2 senior women there as a job share because they both wanted to work part-time, and it's been working for a couple of years now. It will be really interesting on your podcast, Claire, to hear examples like that of, you know, that will be quite inspirational for people, I think. To, you know, real life success stories and case studies.
Yeah, that's what we hope to bring, just to normalise this, because, you know, I think it's over 8.5 million people work part-time. It's like 1 in 4. Right. So it's not that unusual, but it's still sort of seen as not the norm, and that's what we need to change.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Claire, for being part of this. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you kind of in the run up to this and also this morning. And thanks to everyone who's joined. I hope that it's been helpful and insightful. And, you know, please do reach out to Claire and I if you've got any questions. And yeah, we look forward to continuing the conversation and hopefully making an impact and some changes.
Lovely. Thanks, Jen.
Lovely. Thanks so much, Claire. Bye, everyone. Have a great
Bye.
day.